We're talking with the one and only Randy Bachman, Bachman Turner Overdrive, coming to the Chevalier Theater in Medford this coming Saturday night. It's a great Saturday night show, and a band that is celebrating, last year celebrated 50 years. And I was reading an interview with you, Randy, from I think it was last year, and I'm going to paraphrase here a little. When you said when you were a teenager, you thought maybe this music thing would last a week, maybe a month or so, but you never figured 50 years later you'd still be doing this, you'd still be making music, especially with BTO. And what's the secret to doing it for this long?
Well, you got to love it.
Yeah.
You really do. But it's almost like anything. I started playing music when I was 5 years of age, so it was by classical violin. So you learn to practice every day, and it just becomes part of you, and it doesn't matter what you're playing. So, I was 15, I switched to guitar. I've been playing it ever since, and it's just what you do. I remember going to school, they kept saying, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I'd say, "I'm doing it already." And I'm still doing it. So that's and I think the same thing happened with Paul McCartney and Neil Young and Mick Jagger. And you start this as a kid, you're a teenager, you want to be like Elvis or Chuck Berry or Bo Diddley, or if you're younger, you want to be like Justin Timberlake or Justin Bieber, whatever. You just start to do it, and you keep doing it. Suddenly, decades go by, and you're still doing it.
I've seen in a lot of interviews with you, you reference the music to like a time machine almost, where you play that particular song and it takes you back to maybe that time you were writing it or first performing it. And do you, do you still have that feeling when you're up there, playing the BTO stuff?
Yes, I do. And it doesn't matter if I'm on stage with Turner, like with Bachman Turner, or I'm on with Burton Cummings and we're doing, a show of the Guess Who material. I look over in the middle of American Woman, and Burton Cummings is 22 years of age, and I'm 24 years of age. It's that kind of feeling. And I saw Sting on television a couple of months ago, and somebody was interviewing him on a late night show, and they said, so they asked Sting about, how do you write to hit songs, and why are you still performing? And he said, it's a communion kind of with people. And if you said to any of your listeners, what were you doing 20 years ago today? They'd have no idea. What were you doing 10 years ago today? They have no idea. But if you said to them, what are you doing the first time you heard American Woman? What were you doing the first time you heard Takin Care of Business? What were you doing the first time you heard These Eyes? Well, I heard These Eyes at a high school dance, and I made out with a chick, and we got married, and we played every year at our anniversary. And so these songs take people back in time as well. And so to be lucky enough that I'm on Saturday's show, I'm doing about 6 or 7 hit songs from the Guess Who, and a good dozen from BTO. And my son Cal is in the band, and he's had a big hit called She's So High. So we take all ages of people back in a time travel moment that it doesn't exist anywhere else. It's at that moment we're all together, 100, 1,000, 5,000 people, doesn't matter how many, all together thinking and on the same vibe for like 90 minutes or 2 hours. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, you mentioned Burton Cummings, and I saw that both of you and he are nominated for the Songwriters Hall of Fame. That must be quite an honor, and you're in good company with like the Doobie Brothers and Tracy Chapman. How does that feel?
Well, we were in the running to be nominated, and we didn't make the final nomination.
Oh,
but it was
sorry.
No, it was okay. It was still a wonderful. It's a wonderful honor. But I'll tell you what, everybody who is nominated should just get in. I mean, we're not a bunch of schmucks, if you know what I mean. Between Burton and I, we've written 50 hit songs. I mean, look at what he did in the Guess Who, and after I left, and then I went on to BTO. We've sold like 50, 60 million records, and which is music we all wrote, and they shouldn't have nominations. They should just say, you're all in. Like, they shouldn't have nominations, and then you lose in the nominations, which is what we did. Maybe they'll nominate us next year. We've never been in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in New York, and it's been decades and decades and decades, and other guys get in who have had 3 hit records. I've had 20.
Ozzy Osbourne has said he doesn't really care about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm not using his exact words because we can't really say that on the radio. But does something like that mean a lot to you, even though you've already kind of proven it? You've sold millions of records. You've played in front of billions of people. They still play your music, whether it's BTO, Guess Who on the radio. Does it matter if you get into any kind of Hall of Fame?
No, it doesn't matter anymore. You kind of get numb to it after a while because you see much lesser people, not even in the category, being nominated. And you realize the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is Jan Werner's favorite people because he owns it. And if he doesn't like you or your music, you never get in. Right. If he likes you, you're in 3 times. Neil Young, my friend, is in 3 times. Stephen Stills is in 3 times. A lot of guys are in 3 times. Do you know what I mean? And if he doesn't like you, you're not in no matter how many groups you're in. I'm the only guy, I think, besides Paul McCartney, that's had a #1 single and album in 2 different bands in 2 different decades.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And it really, though, I mean, you don't need to be validated. You've put in the work, right?
Yes, and I think I got nominated now. If you saw Todd Rundgren's, if not, Google it. He goes up there and he says, I don't accept this, quote, honor. I don't want to be in this club. It's too exclusive. I'm just a rocker, and he walks off the stage. Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
Can we talk? I have a question about one of your biggest hits. You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet with BTO. The stuttering part. I was always curious. Why did you include that in there?
The song was not supposed to be on an album. It was a fool around getting a sound for BTO 3, which I was producing, the Not Fragile album. And it's just to get a bass sound and a drum sound and a rhythm guitar sound and a heavy guitar sound. And I have a brother who stutters. And so to tease him, I sang any lyrics that came to my mind over this rhythm track. And I mixed one copy on a cassette to send to him to kind of tease him, because I had 3 brothers and I was the oldest. So we teased each other our whole life and played tricks on each other. And then when the head of our label came to hear the album, and this is to follow up BTO 1 and BTO 2 that already had the hits Blue Collar, Let It Ride, and Taking Care of Business. And he heard BTO 3, Not Fragile, and said, gee, I like Rolling Down the Highway, I like this and that, but I don't hear a really great song to take you higher than Let It Ride and TCB on Top 40 radio. And I said, that's it. The album is 8 songs. We're all done. We spent a whole week in the studio. We got 8 songs done. And the engineer said, play him the throwaway track. And I said, you're kidding. He said, no, play it. We played it for Charlie Thatch, who was the head of the label. And he said, that song is amazing. I've never heard anything like it in my lifetime. Believe me, I picked out Hey Baby for Bruce Chanel. I picked out Maggie May for Rod Stewart. And he named a whole bunch of songs he had picked out for artists that were B-sides or hidden songs that he said that was the song to pick. And he squeezed it onto the album. It's the only BTO album with 9 songs. It's got the extra song. He put the 5 shorter songs on one side and the 4 longer on the other side, so it would be balanced sound-wise. And he put it on the album, and it went to #1 in 22 countries. And I just got a notice yesterday morning when I woke up. I was still in Victoria yesterday morning. I woke up to a fact from England. Somebody sent me a magazine called Tusk, took a survey in 300 countries, and the song with the most memorable rock and roll chorus was You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. It won over every other song. And 5 years ago, I got a diploma, if you can believe this, from the American Stuttering Association, a big diploma that said it was the best stuttering song of all time. It beat Benny and the Jets and My Generation and a whole bunch of other songs. So this was me teasing my brother. But here's the amazing thing. After that song went everywhere, 22 countries, #1, my brother stopped stuttering. He became one of the most successful businessmen in Winnipeg and owned a big real estate company with 500 employees. And he was like an Anthony Robbins, his guru and a fan, and he became very super successful.
That's amazing. That's and you weren't even trying with that song, and it became
No.
huge.
It was a throwaway when he said, put it on the album. I said, wait a minute. I don't even know what I'm singing. The guitar's out of tune. I haven't even tuned the guitar. So the guitar is disguised in that song by putting it through a Leslie speaker, which spins it around, which kind of changes the pitch a little bit, and a big echo put on it, so you don't hear the guitar being out of tune. You hear the guitar affected 3 different ways, and it's just an amazing act of here and then and right now, and just putting it out. And I figured, then I realized I know nothing about the music business.
Right. There really is no formula. I mean, you're a person who's written we say thousands of songs, some you've released and whatever, but there really is no formula.
People say to me, how did you write 15 hit songs? And I say, it's real easy. You write 1,500.
Right.
And out of that, maybe out of every 12, out of every two dozen songs, you might have one that's a memorable hit it's magical to get it on the radio. Then it's magical when people in the old days request it. Then they go out and buy it. And then then radio changes their format, and suddenly they're not playing a golden oldie anymore, or a groovy grooveyard, whatever they used to call it, a moldy oldie. They turn into a whole format, and the classic rock format comes out. It's like a jazz format or blues format. And classic rock, I remember when it came out in the 90s, we thought the same thing. Oh, this is going to last a year. It still lasted. Everybody loves classic rock. And the reason they love it is it's a bunch of guys playing together in a room. It's not computer. It's a bunch of guys jamming together. And it's funny when you record, it's a brand new song, basically. Nobody knows what they're playing. They're all playing on an instinct of what they think they should play to make the song better. After you tour for 10 years and you played it hundreds of times, you know what you're playing. But when you're recording it for the first time, everyone's making mistakes and everybody's on the edge, hoping they're not the one to make the mistake and have to start over again. And you do it, and suddenly you get a perfect song, a perfect take, or one with less mistakes. Most of my hits have mistakes in them. Most of the Beatles songs have mistakes in them, but it's the performance that you go for. And then fans listen for the bass mistake or the stuttering or whatever, and then the magic takes over.
You mentioned your friend Neil Young, and I'm a huge, huge Neil Young fan. He kind of had a similar way. His policy, and I'm sure you know this, like as soon as he stepped foot in the studio, just start rolling tape, because that first take may be the one. Like you said, it may be the right kind of tension that gives you the take you want.
Right. I've recorded with him many times. If you Google Prairie Town, which is a song I wrote, there's a slow version and fast version out. That when I went into studio with him, and we went through it once, I said, that was really great. Now let's do it again. And he said, why?
Yeah.
And I said, well, there's a little mistake in the end. He said, yes, and it's captured. Isn't that great? I go, yeah, okay, great.
I love it. It doesn't get any more real than Neil Young, man. That's great.
Right.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Randy. Again, BTO playing Chevalier Theater, Medford, Saturday night. I got one last thing, and I'm with a guy I work with. His name is Josh Dolan. So when he was like in first grade, he started playing the drums, and his father somehow got in touch with your late brother, Robbie. And Robbie would send advice. Is this true, Josh?
Yeah.
Robbie would send advice through Josh's dad for him on playing drums.
Yes.
Yeah. And he just wanted to say thanks for that.
Yeah, I think my dad ran into Robbie outside the Hampton Beach Casino ballroom, and my dad got to talking to him, and then they exchanged emails, and so he used to send AOL advice.
That's awesome. And Josh, at that time, you were so moved. Correct me if I'm wrong. You named your goldfish Robbie.
Yes,
after Robbie.
Had
Bachman.
a Robbie goldfish.
Yes. I just wanted to relate that story. I thought that was great, and a great story about your late brother.
Thank you. I got asked to do a new BTO album because a lot of fans are asking for it. So, along with Fred Turner, we're writing songs. And Robbie's estate just called me, the executive estate, and said, "We want to give you Robbie's 1974 set of red Sonar drums for your studio. So when you're recording new BTO stuff, you'll have this sound because his drumming was a big part of the BTO sound. He played very unorthodox because he didn't even have a drum set. He used to play on pots and pans with wooden spoons in my mother's kitchen." And I kept saying to him, play like Ringo Starr, play like Charlie Watts, play like John Bonham. And so he learned to play that way. But Ringo played backwards. Ringo was a left-handed guy who drummed with a right-handed set of drums, and all his drum rolls are backwards. So you listen to BTO's drum rolls, listen to Let It Ride or Rolling Down the Highway or Taking Care of Business. The drum rolls are all backwards. So you have to be a special kind of drummer to play that way. But it gave all my guitar solos and the songs a certain oddity that if you're a normal drummer playing to it, you wouldn't play that way. But when you play that way, it sounds like Robbie playing with BTO. It's really cool.
That's, again, there really is no formula. It's just kind of, it's about happening organically. And that's an awesome story too, man. Thank you Randy Bachman, for sharing these stories. And we are looking forward to seeing you Saturday night at the Chevalier Theater. So, Randy,
thank you. We'll be having a trip. We'll be having a trip through time together. Thank you.
Awesome.